Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 2021 virtual gala for the Wildlife Center of Virginia, our second ever online gala, and our second ever year, quite like we've had in the last 2 years. And we appreciate everyone joining us tonight. We especially appreciate all of the enthusiasm that's been shown for the gala so far. The bidding has been wonderful, and we'll get to the auction in a few minutes, but just want to take a moment and welcome everyone. We think we have our technology down pretty well this year. We had a little practice last year, and of course, for the last year and a half, we've been doing almost everything we do online. And surprisingly enough, even though we were braced for a drop in our effectiveness and perhaps a drop in our support, what we have found is that those of you who do support us have supported us at levels that we've never seen before. And it is not only gratifying, but it is humbling. This has been a busy year. A lot of you know we've had record numbers of patients. Last year, we shattered the previous total record patient intake by a lot. And so far this year, we're ahead of last year. The good news is that at least now we do have most of our students back and many of our volunteers back. So there are more hands on the wheel, but 2020 was a really rough year for the Wildlife Center. 2021 has been challenging as well, because a lot of us are still working from home. We're still masked and gowned and pretty much locked down at the Wildlife Center. And as you may have heard from some of the earlier events, that's not just out of fear of the pandemic for our staff, because our entire staff has been vaccinated, and many of us have been boosted even, but it has to do with our animals. Many of our species of wildlife have been shown to be vulnerable to this particular strain of coronavirus, including white-tailed deer and gray squirrels and bats. And so we are having to take extra precautions, and that means masks and gloves and no visitors in the building when certain animals are being cared for. And it's been a challenge, but we have an incredible team of people, incredible staff at the Wildlife Center. They've stepped up, they've performed incredibly well. And I have to say, the Wildlife Center tonight, is the strongest it's ever been in its history. One of our big projects through the year has been the Great Rebuild Project. We started off in the spring thinking that it was time to reconstruct and upgrade many of our animal enclosures and a lot of other parts of our facility. And so we set a goal and we set a timeline and we charged into a capital campaign. Unexpectedly, the results of and the response to that capital campaign were unprecedented. We ended up shattering the goal of the capital campaign. And so now we are in the process of adding things to our reconstruction and construction list that we thought we would not get to for years. And there'll be a lot more news on that coming in the months ahead. A lot of new plans still underway. The construction that has been going on has been remarkable. The new animal enclosures are beautiful, and not only do we love them, the animals love them. And we look forward to the time when we can open back up and you can come see them firsthand. Well, as is our custom every year, we like to give you something of a summary of what's gone on, what's going on, and kind of where we are. And the fact that we're doing it online this year gives us an opportunity again to do it in a video format. So let's see if we can take a short tour through the Wildlife Center virtually. And there we go. And we're back. And I'm being joined by my colleague and my friend, Randy Hewitt, the Executive Vice President of the Wildlife Center of Virginia. Mr. Executive Vice President, top of the evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. You're looking particularly dapper this evening. It's great to be here as part of the gala.
Well, it's starting off well, and that was a remarkable little video, and certainly the flashbacks were intense. It's a diverse place to work, as we know, and I think that gave our guests a little snapshot. And Amanda Nicholson, our Vice President for Outreach and Education, is joining us. Amanda, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And we've had a busy evening so far, apparently.
We have been, yes.
So I have been doing domestic chores, feeding horses and dogs and that sort of thing. So I didn't get a chance to participate in some of the earlier activities. What's been going on?
Well, here at the center, I'm at the center. It has been very busy here. We just ended our 90-minute ambassador room, and
Right.
Man, that went well. I shared a bunch of photos with the staff internally because I'm so proud of everyone. Man, all of our ambassadors and all of our humans did so well. We were able to see many ambassadors, so we had a great time doing that. And I know Dr. Emily is still here too. I know she was hoping to go home to do her gala room from home, but of course, life of a vet intern, she was
Right.
here Zooming with Cara and Jen.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, I did get a chance to visit one of our VIP rooms before the event, and everybody seems to be in good spirits. So we have a lot of activities for this evening. We have one of the largest auctions I think we've ever had. I think that's right, is it not?
I think that's correct.
And based on my quick summary of what's been going on, it certainly looks like the bidding has been very enthusiastic and very gratifying. I hope some of you are still lurking with your bids, watching your bids, and we've used a technology platform that does not facilitate willpower. When you get that note that says you've been outbid, your reaction is, oh yeah, well, I'll show you. Or at least we hope it is.
This is no time for willpower, Ed. This is time for reckless bidding.
Well, it is time for willpower, not won't power.
That's
You
right.
will bid.
And the other part of the will is that the contributions that you make, the dollars that you donate when you purchase an item, will enable us to give a second chance to a wild animal in need. And that's really the point of this whole evening. And if we don't say it, we can't possibly say it enough, but thank you. Thank you for people who donated items for tonight's auction. Thank you to people who were sponsors. Thank you for people who bought tickets. Thank you for people who are spending money in the auction. All of those dollars together make possible our life-saving work. And we are so very, very grateful. Let me just take a moment to explain sort of the procedures for this evening. Many of you who are auction regulars or veterans are used to the notion of having the silent auction followed by the live auction. This year, those are not the rules. This year, all of the auction items end at the same time, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. Our goal here tonight for 9 o'clock. Thank you.
I had to practice under the table first.
Oh, good job. We're going to go through some of the auction items now. We're not going to go through all of them because we would be here until well after 9 o'clock. But my job is to be a little bit of the taskmaster or train master tonight, and to try to keep us going through some of these items so that we can enjoy them and explore them and hear a little bit more about them. My objective is for us to finish that by about 8:50 so that everyone has that last 10-minute period to go in, check your bids, up your bids, check your bids, up your bids, and see where we are. So our hope is to be done at about 845, 850. Is that okay, panelists? Ed, Amanda?
Yes, I think that's a wonderful goal. And I will say that there are some strategies that people have used in previous years during live auctions that have proven to be extremely effective in this bidding challenge. If you find yourself in a bid war with someone, one of the most effective things you can do is simply double your bid. And that has a way of intimidating those who are bidding against you. And it gives you a great sense of confidence and well-being. And, you know, they say, give till it hurts. We don't believe in that. We want you to give until it feels good. And we can tell you right now that so far the level of bidding feels pretty good.
And when you bid, please remember that there are two functions as part of this auction software. You can put in a bid, or you can also do an auto bid, what Amanda calls the set it and forget it. If you don't want to be constantly checking back and forth to see how your bid is going, put in your maximum auto bid and let the system bid for you. And you can go in and check and see how it's doing. One other bit of housekeeping before we get into the auction items. I hope that you all have noticed that there are two non-auction buckets or two non-auction items that are displayed on our website. And those are auction items, or items number 50 and number 60. Those are not items for sale. This is basically our hope that people will make an additional donation to help us with two particular projects. One of those is a new Bearmobile, and I'll ask Amanda to talk about that in just a second. That's number 50. And the second is what we call the house fund. This is our request for you to make an additional donation into those to help us with those particular projects. You can donate $1, you can donate $1,000, but we're really grateful for that. And let's start with number 50, and that's the new Bearmobile. Amanda, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what we use a Bearmobile for and why we need a new one.
Sure, yeah. Well, as you can see in this image, the Bearmobile is also known as our Polaris. It's an electric vehicle that we use to haul bear food around, whether that is hauling bear food up to the large mammal isolation enclosure where we more commonly house cubs, or hauling it all the way up to the bear complex where we have pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of food. I think those of you who regularly tune into the critter cams and keep up with the bears know that we seldom have a day here without a bear in-house. I mean, we've just, you build it, they will come. We built it in 2013. They have come, they have been here nearly every singular day since 2013. And as Randy and I were looking back on the Polaris, Randy was like, oh, do you have a video of this? And I was like, yes, it's from when we first bought it in like 2013, which is wild. So it is a workhorse. It has worked very hard nearly every day since then. It is now dead and tired of working. So that's a pretty good stretch, I would say, to go 8 years of hauling around all of this hundreds of pounds of food and everything for the rehabbers. But the time is now. They need something reliable, because currently, if you guys attended the Monday event with our Bear Care team, you know that they're eating something like those 5 cubs, and it's just 5 this year. They're eating 125 pounds of food a day. The rehabbers are very strong, but let's not push them too far. So
well, and
a Bearmobile will take care of us.
Yeah, the one thing a lot of folks don't remember is we actually purchased it used. There were new 4-wheel vehicles available, but we chose an electric vehicle because we did not want to condition our bears to associate the sound of an ATV or a UTV, 4-wheeler of any type, with food. We didn't want some hunter to be going through the woods and have some former wildlife center patient come running out of the woods looking for lunch. So finding the electric vehicle was a challenge the first time, but fortunately, a local dealership had just taken one in on trade. And so this vehicle has been with us since 2013. I had forgotten it's been that long. But it is a little long in the vehicular tooth, and right now it is broken down. So one of my responsibilities in the coming week is to go haul it back to the repair shop. It seems to spend as much time with them as it does with us. And when they're hauling this much food and up to our bear complex, if you haven't visited the Wildlife Center, the bear complex is way uphill in the far corner of our animal enclosure compound. And there's just no easy way to get there. And of course, it broke down at the absolute far corner of that compound. So we're going to have quite a challenge getting it out of there. But that's coming up on Monday. But we need a new one. We are almost certainly going to again go with Polaris. The local dealership has been really, really good to us. There are only 2 American-made brands on the market. And this one suits our needs well, but they're not cheap.
We understand that the cost of a new one or a gently used one would be in the neighborhood of $12,000 or $13,000.
Probably going to be 13 to 14,000 based on what I'm seeing now. And we don't really care what the color is, although I think they all come in camo. Any color you want, as long as it's camo.
Right.
But the 4-wheel drive element really does come into play as well, because a lot of the area where the bear compound is built is quite steep. And if the bears are in need of food and there happens to be ice or snow on the ground, they're still in need of food. And so it serves us well for a wide variety of conditions and functions. And we really, we don't ask for stuff when we don't need it, but this vehicle has certainly earned its keep and lived out its life well.
So if you would like to help us with a donation to help us buy a new Bearmobile, you can see that as item number 50. There's one additional little sweetener to encourage you to make a donation. If you'd like, we're going to draw one name from the list of people who donate to the Bearmobile. And that lucky person will get a ride on the new Polaris. We'll give you a ride around the center, depending on the time of year. We may be able to take you up to the bear yards if they happen to be empty. If there are no bears up there, if there are bears up there, sorry, that's strictly off limits. You won't be able to go up there. But we will give you a great ride. We can maybe take you over to Bear Oak. I don't know what the possibilities are here, Amanda. You can tell me that when I'm getting into trouble. But that's for anyone who makes a donation to item number 50. Item number 60 is what we call the house fund. As you guys know, we've been doing the great rebuild, and a lot of that has been focused on the outdoor enclosures that we use to house some of our education ambassadors and that we use as part of the rehabilitation of patients. We also have some work that we need to do at the center, what we're calling the house. And if you go to item 60, you can see the description there. There are a couple of particular things that we've been working on. For example, this last year, we had a wonderful infestation of wasps. The wasps have built a fairly extensive nest structure above President Clark's office and above the development office right next door. If you go to item number 60 and you see the sign that says warning, do not enter, that was not to keep you out of going into item number 60. That was the sign that was on the door of the development office because we were afraid that people going in there might encounter the wasps. The wasps are gone, or are mostly gone, but they've done some damage and they've eaten away some of the stuff above that drop ceiling. So that's one of the things we need to do with the house fund. We need to continue the remodeling of the outreach area. The Wildlife Center is a wonderful facility. It's starting to show its age a little bit, and we're starting to run out of room. So we need to figure out some ways of making better, more efficient, more effective use of the room that we have. So your donation to the house fund will help us with those kinds of projects, with dealing with the wasps, with remodeling, with things like the plumbing, that nuts and bolts stuff that we need. So that's item number 60. Item number 50, item number 60 are non-auction items. we're asking for your additional donations.
Right,
So
and, there you go. And, so a strategy again to employ is if you are outbid on an item for which you have been in pursuit or of which you've been in pursuit and somebody else gets the bid, just take the bid that didn't win and dump it into one of these other two funds and you'll feel better and so will we.
And if there's an auction that comes in at a little less than you were willing to bid, so you've got $25 left over, I've got the perfect place for you to put it. No need to take it home.
With a new vehicle in which to haul it. So
there you go. Let's go to our first auction item that we're going to showcase. We're not going to go through all of the top 10 or top 15. We're going to kind of pick and choose. So let's start with item number 6, the Day at the Wildlife Center. Amanda, would you like to kind of walk us through this, because you often are served as part of our host committee for the Day at the Wildlife Center?
Sure, yeah. It's been a little while since we've hosted a Day at the Wildlife Center, but we would love to get a group back in here again. In the past, this Day at the Wildlife Center is kind of what it sounds, but you get to run around with all of the staff behind the scenes and see a lot of the day-to-day work that you hear about through the website or read in the annual report or maybe see on Hospital Cam, but you get to like really be there in the treatment room with the vets, in the kitchen with the rehab staff. We throw in lunch with the staff as well, because we're a fun group of people to eat with. And then typically have some ambassador time as well. So talking with our outreach staff and meeting some of our education ambassadors. Depending on the time of year, what you see depends on the time of year. Our busier season for patient admissions is the spring and summer. So you may be seeing many patients coming in of all shapes and sizes, between birds, mammals, reptiles, amphibians. If you come in the fall or winter, still plenty of things to see there as well, just maybe not as intense with the mammal species, but perhaps you get an opportunity to see some surgeries going on. So yeah, it's a really great chance to see the work that goes on here and really to get to know the staff and ask them questions. In the past, we've had people come who, want to see a bit of everything, and then they really want to spend some time with education ambassadors. We've had people who are really interested in the treatment aspect and really want to, take that opportunity to ask the vets lots of questions. So we're happy to adapt to all of that and welcome hosting people here.
And the folks that have had this experience in the past have just raved about it. And in fact, over the years, we've offered this almost every year. Over the years, we've had people vying for return visits, and that's gratifying. So we're pleased to do that. You will become technically a volunteer for the day, so that it is legal for you to be in the hospital and to see animals undergoing treatment. A condition of our permit and a protocol and policy of our organization is that our patients are not on display. And so the fact that you will be a volunteer for the day means that you may be asked to, here, hold this or whatever, and actually participate, but you will get to see firsthand some things that are otherwise generally off limits to the rest of the world. So we hope you'll consider that and bid this up. We've got a nice bid on it right now, but we could certainly justify a good bit more. So thank you for that, Amanda.
This is an item for up to 6 people. So you can put together a small party to come join us for the day. 6 people. This is item 6. See what we did there? And this is for the Day at the Wildlife Center, a really special behind the scenes look at what goes on there, an opportunity to meet with the staff informally, to watch what goes on there. And I think it's a great educational experience. It's a really enjoyable experience. And I encourage folks to think about this. It's a great opportunity, and I hope you will bid on it. Let's go, Mr. Clark, to item number 4.
Yes.
Item number 4, a seat at the table. So can you tell us what that's about, please, Mr.
Well,
Clark?
yeah, it's probably the least well-kept secret that anybody has, that I indeed am a bourbon enthusiast, and not just any bourbon, but the good stuff. And we are going to take advantage of our strong relationship with the Buffalo Trace Distillery. The CEO out there is a old friend of mine, and a lot of the senior staff out there are good friends. And they have been very, very supportive over the years of the Wildlife Center with auction items. But this year we're going to them. There will be a group of 7 people invited to either join me, meet me at the Wildlife Center. We can travel out together. We'll negotiate that, or simply meet me in Frankfort, Kentucky. And we are going to spend a day as VIPs at the Buffalo Trace Distillery, which is one of the oldest distilleries in the United States. The distillery itself is on the National Registry of Historic Landmarks, and the history of this place is incredible. And we're going to get a VIP tour, a behind-the-scenes tour. You will see quite literally from the cornfield to the bottle how America's unique and world famous whiskey is made, bourbon. You'll learn what makes bourbon bourbon, the aging process, the recipes, the stuff we will see will blow your mind. It's just fascinating. You don't even have to be a whiskey drinker or a drinker at all to enjoy this. And again, our relationship gives us some pretty special privileges, and we'll keep some of those secret until the winners have been selected. But we will get the tour. We will have lunch at the distillery, and as a group hosted by Buffalo Trace. And I'm hoping some of my friends will join us for that lunch. And then we will sit as a panel of 8 and sample 4 different barrels of Eagle Rare bourbon. Eagle Rare is one of their signature bourbons, and we will be sampling 4 barrels, and the group will select one of those 4 barrels that they believe is the best. Every barrel is a little bit different in any whiskey manufacturing. I mean, sometimes the differences are very, very subtle and most folks can't tell. Other times they're more profound. We will pick one barrel, and that barrel will be bottled with a special label, Wildlife Center of Virginia, Barrel Select. And each member of our delegation, when that whiskey is bottled and comes in, will receive a full case of Wildlife Center of Virginia, Barrel Select Eagle Rare bourbon. I've got some other friends and activities out there. So while it's not mandatory at all as part of a planned tour, I've got some friends in the thoroughbred racing industry. And if you are interested and you do win the bid on this, we'll go visit my friends at Summerwind Farm, where little Princess Emma lives. Little Princess Emma is the mother of the last Triple Crown winner, American Pharoah. American Pharoah was the first Triple Crown winner in 38 years. And little Princess Emma, or Emma as she's known there, is just a beautiful, beautiful horse, and very friendly. And not only will you get to meet her, you get to get your picture taken with her, and hopefully meet some of American Pharoah's siblings that also live there at the farm, and see how a thoroughbred racing operation works. We'll try to plan a dinner at one of the signature bourbon restaurants in Frankfort. I'm hoping for a restaurant called Bourbon on Main. We'll have to see how their reservations are on the night we choose. But we want to make this a consummate trip. While you are out there, if you choose to stick around and do the tour of the Bourbon Trail, we can make recommendations. We can help you with some of the logistics there. And we intend to work out some lodging discounts for everyone. But this is an exclusive opportunity. And the way this is going to work, the high bidder will get to pick as many seats at the table as he or she wishes to have. So if the high bidder wants to take 7 seats at that high bid price, he or she will get 7 seats at that price. If the high bidder wants 1 seat at that price, then that's what you get. And if then that's only one that they want, the second highest bidder will then get to pick from the 1 seat they've purchased at that second highest bid to the remaining 6, and down it goes from there. I know that some of the folks bidding are right now are bourbon enthusiasts and move in bourbon tasting crowds. So if you want to be sure of a seat at the table, you need to watch this, bid it up. And again, everybody not only will get this incredible experience, you're going to end up with a case of Barrel Select Eagle Rare bourbon that you selected.
So a couple of things here. As someone who is not a bourbon enthusiast, but someone who has visited this area of Kentucky in the spring, let me tell you that it's a beautiful place to be. It's a wonderful opportunity, particularly the opportunity to explore a thoroughbred breeding facility. It's an amazing operation. These are amazing animals, and it's a great opportunity. To go back over what Ed was talking about in terms of the mechanics of this particular item, this item is a little bit different than the others. We're selling 7 chairs, 7 seats at the table for this bourbon tasting event. The high bidder gets to purchase as many of those seats as she wants, up to the level of 7. So if you want to make sure you're on the trip, the way to control your own destiny, so to speak, is to be bidder number 1. Ed will also be in contact with the underbidders, the people who are not the top bidders, as he works his way down through selling these 7 seats. But if you want your first crack, you want to make sure that you can buy 7 seats, or you want to be able to buy 4 seats, or you want to be able to buy 2 seats. If you really want to guarantee a spot, there's one very simple way to do it, and that's to be the top bidder. If folks have questions, if folks are trying to work their way through bidding, Ed is going to be multitasking and is going to be looking at his emails during the course of this session. I'm not quite sure how he's going to do that, but he's a remarkable man. So if you get your bids in now, remember bidding on all items ends at 9 o'clock. So anything else about this one, Mr. Clark?
No, other than I was just out at Buffalo Trace. I didn't even mention that people that hear me talk about Buffalo Trace and say, oh, yeah, I've got my name on a brick at the Buffalo Trace Distillery, they think I'm kidding. That will be on our tour. You will see my brick, and that alone could be worth the trip. So, in any case, it really is a lot of fun. I was just out there about 2 weeks ago, and for a meeting, a gathering of a group that I helped start, actually. It was one of the early members called Friends of the Trace. There are now about 450 members of the Friends of the Trace group, kind of ambassadors for the distillery. I was in the first 20 when I became acquainted with the CEO, and I'm sure we'll be able to bring in some special guests for our visit if possible. The Buffalo Trace Distillery is where Buffalo Trace is made, Blanton's is made, Pappy Van Winkle is made and bottled there. Eagle Rare, of course, and many other fine whiskeys. So you'll get a chance to see that. Their gift shop is incredible. If you do, in fact, drink bourbon, you know these are really hard to find in liquor stores anywhere across the country because they're so popular.
And please remember, when you're looking at that bid price, that is the price for 1 seat at the table.
Correct.
1 seat at the table. So take your high bid price and multiply it by the number of seats that you're interested in buying, and you're figuring out the total cost for your particular package. But remember, top bidder gets to choose how many people she wants to bring with them. So,
and there is 1 case of Eagle Rare per seat. So even if you only want to go by yourself, but you want to buy 2 seats so you can get an extra case of that bourbon, we'll work that out as well. And the retail value of that case here in Virginia, not barrel select, just off the rack Eagle Rare, is about $400. So that is what you will take away from your bid in real value. And these will make, if you're not a bourbon drinker but just want the experience and want to get that case, these will make some treasured gifts for people who happen to be bourbon drinkers.
Okay, let us switch our focus to item number 7. Item number 7 is the Eagle release sponsorship.
All right, and let me interrupt here for just a second. We realized that the video we showed at the beginning of our gala was without sound. There actually is a soundtrack to that. We hope we're going to get sound on this. We've got a little video of an Eagle release, and we will show the opening video again at the end. But let's go take it back to Mr. Hewitt, and how do you want to go after this?
Well, let's talk about releasing an eagle a little bit. Let me just give a little background. And I mean, at this point, the Wildlife Center admits on average nearly 40 eagles a year. I think the number is about 37, 38. Not all of those eagles make it, but those that do, we like to have a little event when we release them. Because of COVID restrictions, we've been not able to do that quite as much as we wanted. Under the regulations of the Department of Wildlife Resources, we generally take an eagle back to the jurisdiction from which it was rescued, the city or the town or the county, and take that eagle back to more or less its home territory. Ed, of course, is our primary eagle releaser, and he is the one who does the release. This is your opportunity to be a special sponsor of an eagle release. You don't get to release the bird. Ed or a Wildlife Center staff person will be the only people who releases the bird. But what you do have is the opportunity to get a special briefing on this eagle's case from Dr. Kara or another member of our vet staff, and the opportunity to have lunch with Ed, the opportunity to be part of that inner circle of eagle releasers. If we're going to a facility like we recently had an eagle release in which we could have no more than 20 people in attendance, you'll be part of that group of 20. Even if it's a larger group, you will have a seat front and center for the eagle release, and maybe even the opportunity to have Ed get your picture taken for sure. Maybe you can even help in the eagle countdown as Ed counts down for getting ready to release. Ed, you've released a few eagles. Tell us a little about that.
Just a few. And what I will say that some folks are more comfortable than others getting close to the eagle as we are releasing it. There are often times when I need help, an eagle wrangler, as I characterize it. So typically when we go to a destination to release an eagle, most of these are some distance away from the Wildlife Center. And that usually involves then putting a hood on the eagle that covers its entire head, keeps it dark, which keeps it calm. But when we get there, we've got to take the hood off, and we have to take the wrapping that is put around the tail feathers so that the eagle doesn't damage its tail feathers in the crate as we're transporting it to the release location. So we often need an assistant. And if the person winning this bid is interested in being that assistant, we certainly can accommodate that, opening the cage as I go in with my big gloves to bring the eagle out for the release, and being right there with us. If you haven't been around one of these birds up close and you think you know what it's about, you're wrong. You have no idea. It truly is just an overwhelming experience. And for many people, I say this sometimes kind of cynically, but for a lot of folks, it truly is a religious experience in the sense that these birds are so magnificent. They are so extraordinarily regal. And I have released, I don't know, hundreds of them, I suppose, over the years. And people hear me say it all the time. It never gets old, and it truly doesn't. Every single one is unique. Every single one is special. Every single one, my heart is in my throat as I launch that bird hoping that it's going to fly perfectly. And it's something where literally, as that bird leaves my hands, even if we have hundreds of people there, you can hear a pin drop. And then when the bird does fly off, the whole place erupts. And it's quite an experience. And so we'll, depending on where we go, we do know where the best restaurants near our Eagle Release locations are. So we'll find a good place depending on your culinary preferences. I'll host you for lunch, and then you can be with me and help me return an eagle to the wild.
Ed knows the best restaurants every place. Ed should actually do a restaurant guide. Maybe
well, I could probably do that. Yeah. I mean, if you got to travel, you may as well eat well.
Maybe we'll do that as an item for next year's auction, something like dining with Ed. Or
I'm not sure everybody has the same culinary taste that I do. I mean,
doesn't matter. It's fine.
Eastern Shore, talk to me about fried oysters.
It'll be fine.
Get out of the way.
It'll be fine. I don't know how many Eagle releases I've been to in my 16 years at the Wildlife Center of Virginia. I've been to a bunch, and I've got to say each one is a pretty special experience. Ed talks about that moment after the eagle is released. And instead of paraphrasing Ed, I'm going to let Ed talk about it.
There is a moment, and I talk about it, about shooting your cuffs. So shooting your cuffs is an old saying that if you were wearing cufflinks, and I don't happen to be tonight because we're online and not in person. In fact, I'm not wearing shoes, but I really not going to show you that. But shooting your cuffs is where you put your arm out so people can see your cufflinks. And if you've got diamonds or gold or cool cufflinks, that's what you do. You shoot your cuffs. Well, there's a point at which the eagle is flying away, and its first tendency is just to try to get away from me. He's looking back over his shoulder, and he just wants to be out of my hands, and he realizes he's free. And at one point, as he's flying away, he shoots his cuffs and then turns his attention from escaping me to returning to the wild. And some eagles, it's more prominent than others, but at every single one of them, there is that moment when he turns his attention away from captivity to freedom. And we'll tell you to watch for it. And if you do happen to see it, you'll never forget it.
I mean, one of the things about releasing an eagle that has come to us as a nestling, and we usually have a couple of those every year, is these are eagles who have learned to fly in one of our flight pens. And a flight pen is, 100, 110 feet long. And we can chase them back and forth in terms of exercising so they can build up more stamina. But when you release them out into the wild, they take off and suddenly realize that the length of their flight is no longer limited by the length of a pen. That they can just keep going. And it's remarkable to watch that happen and to see how they adjust to life in the wild. I believe Jennifer, who's helping us behind the scenes, she's our magician tonight, that we have a video of an eagle release with Ed from 2020, if I remember correctly. And let's hope we can share that, and let's hope we can listen to it as well this time.
Aha, let there be sound.
We are in Gloucester, Virginia, and we are in the release of an eagle. Yeah, I was doing my homework in there, and then Mom says there's an eagle in the backyard. I'm like, what? And then we walked out, and it was trying to fly, but it couldn't fly.
Yep, I grabbed Lydia, and we could tell it was her, so her and I kept our distance, but followed it just to keep an eye on it.
So we followed it because we knew if, I don't know how to call it, what they are called, but the people who would come and rescue the animal, if they came, that we should follow it to keep an eye on it so we knew where it went.
Kept hitting some barbed wire and stuff, so we were really worried about it. And then it ended up in this pile of sticks and would not move from there.
So I called my dad in tears because nobody would pick up or they wouldn't come out here. And I was crying because I thought it was gonna die out here. But then Dad came and saved it.
I got a phone call. I was cooking dinner, got a phone call. My daughter called, said she's seen a bald eagle on the ground and it was hurt, it wouldn't fly. So I don't know, it was about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. I just said, well, if nobody's gonna go and rescue, the bald eagle, I might as well go ahead and try, So I did. So I came out to this field at night and had a blanket, and I just put the blanket over top of the eagle. It was very docile. It wasn't, aggressive. Picked her up, got a couple pictures for myself, and then we transferred her to a emergency clinic. Yeah, York County, to an emergency clinic, 24-hour emergency clinic. And then they obviously called you guys, to come and get her and rehabilitate her. It's really, really cool. I would say the mood of the bird was definitely different. The first encounter with her, she was very docile, and yeah, she was on the defensive a little bit, but seeing her today, she was wide-eyed, she was ready to go.
Absolutely amazing, breathtaking.
Yeah, it was definitely a cool experience.
It just felt, I don't know how to say it. It just felt good to see it fly off. And now it's out in the wild and it's home again.
Wow. Well,
It just felt good.
yeah, it always does. That was one of the deep pandemic releases. There were about a dozen people there, including the people who rescued it, the family that you saw, the little girl. Lydia was, she, honest to gosh, was wise beyond her young years. The fact that they knew to follow the bird. I can't tell you how many times we've gotten calls about, oh, there's this injured animal out here, and well, can you still see it? Oh no, we saw it about an hour ago. We don't know where it is now, but we want you to come get it. And it just doesn't work that way. But that particular bird and that particular family, and especially that particular little girl, represent really what it's all about. And I can never watch that without feeling the emotions we felt that day, and that we feel it all of them. I mean, it's just when you see these birds go back, it's just beyond anything that you can trivialize. And so I hope anybody who's interested in sharing that with us will bid this item up. Come join me, and I promise you an interesting time. Promise you an interesting time.
I've got to tell you, Ed, I knew how this eagle release was going to go because, well, I mean, you know, we had it on video and I've seen it before. But I got to tell you, I held my breath as you were holding that bird. And I kind of rooched up out of my seat as you released it because, you know, that's what we do, is to make sure that that bird goes off. So thank you for sharing that. And this is an opportunity for you to be a sponsor for one of those eagle releases. So remember, this is item number 7. So please get your bids in on item number 7. Amanda, let's switch to item number 14.
Okay.
Which is an opportunity to talk a little bit about a screech owl with whom you've been working.
Yes. How long do I have? An hour? I will talk about this bird all night.
No, please don't. Thank you.
Oh man, he's my favorite subject. So those of you who joined us last night for our Putting on the Ritz event got to hear a bit more about this bird, especially firsthand from Dr. Kara, who saved this bird's life. We have this little video that will loop, hopefully, that just kind of recounts some of his very early days with us. He was admitted as a nestling, an older nestling, early fledge, early this spring. And he came in, and apparently our front desk staff, he appeared dead. The front desk staff took him to Dr. Kara and said, "Can you double check that this owl is dead?" And Dr. Kara is like, "Well, I think he is, but yes, I will." But he was alive. He looked real bad. That is actually this shot when he was in. They set him up in a critical care chamber on oxygen, and he had lead poisoning, lead intoxicosis. So he also had some head trauma from an injury, perhaps falling from that nest, and was just in the worst shape. He pulled through that initial sort of debacle, and as you saw from the earlier video, had a raging head tilt, like his head was fully upside down. And Dr. Kara very painstakingly fed this bird little tidbits because he couldn't do it on his own with his head totally upside down. And he recovered from that. They made him his own little custom neck brace even. So again, like, defied the odds a second time and managed to recover from that. But unfortunately, when it came time for him to be exercised, Kelsey is in the comments and watching the gala out there. Kelsey had experience evaluating this bird of like really, you know, getting him to fly in a big space, seeing how he does. But unfortunately, quickly concluded that this bird was not really able to navigate in a large space, couldn't really fly at all. So clearly some lingering neurologic issues, which is pretty classic for a bird with really high lead toxicity. This bird went through multiple rounds of treatment as well. So yeah, unfortunately, we knew at that point that he was non-releasable. But a non-releasable owl perhaps meant that he could be a good ambassador. So I kind of had my eye on him from the very start, I will say, just knowing that a lot of these lead intoxicated patients do have some sort of permanent deficit. So I kind of wondered if he might be a good candidate. But I think, you know, it's important to emphasize that it is a candidate at first, right? We need to make good decisions for our education ambassadors. I believe that if we're asking these animals to spend the rest of their lives in captivity, then we need to be making good decisions for them every step of the way. So Dr. Cara handed him off to me, and I said, okay, let's see if I can train a young screech owl. This is admittedly the first screech owl I have trained. The Wildlife Center has had education screech owl ambassadors in the past, but the big change here is that like so many things over the years, like wildlife medicine and research and all of the work that the Wildlife Center does, training changes too. It's been an evolution of training. We've adopted best practices, as we're committed to do for every bit of the Wildlife Center's work. And so we had to approach training this bird a little bit differently. So he is still in training. He actually, as you can see here, you're like, I don't know what enclosure this is at the Wildlife Center. This is not an enclosure. This is my guest room. So he is living at my house for now. After talking to a good friend of mine who is an expert owl trainer, we decided that if it was okay with everyone, it would be far better for me to take this little kiddo home where I could work with him more frequently and just get that much faster along in the progress. So I was able to watch him. I did a lot of these images. This is him after a bath one night. I bought a little cheapy webcam and stuck it in the room so I could watch him at all times. It became a bit of an obsession. There you can see a nice comparison of that wacky head tilt and how perfect he looks now. But I've been able to watch him on webcam and work with him, and was able to see he can get around fine in this space. Like there are no, I don't have concerns anymore about his neurologic issues of navigating a small space. He just can't, fly in the wild. So kind of checked that little checkbox. And have started training, and it's going really well, but I will say it's slow going, and that's normal for a screech owl. Screech owls can be easily intimidated. They are little birds of prey, but they are also, they're predators because they hunt, but they're also prey species. So I have to go slowly with this guy. But at this point, signs look good. So Randy and I had talked, and I was like, Randy, I'm just like, everything is going really well, and I really want this bird to work out so much, but what if something happens? And Randy's like, well, we'll refund people's money if it doesn't work out. But I'm very hopeful at this point. We have seen really great progress. He is, despite his neurologic issues, he's making the connections. We've built up to him tongue feeding. He comes down to a scale or a target wherever I ask him to go. He'll weigh himself. He takes foods from the tongs. He figures that stuff out pretty quickly, actually. When I'm late with feeding, he will be standing on the target there waiting for me. I like to picture him with his wings on his hips, because he does seem a little like, where's the food, lady? But yeah, we don't know gender for sure. I say he, but we don't know. That would be a step that once he graduates to moving back to the center, and we have a reason to have him in hand, we would do a quick blood draw and do the DNA testing to know. So yeah, so winning bidder would get to name this bird again if everything checks off. I had said earlier this week in the discussion when we were talking about this bird, in the meantime, until we get to that point of where we're saying, yes, he's official, I'm happy to supply the winning bidder with updates, with photos, with videos, with my crazy training notes. There's no end to how much I will tell you about this owl. I will talk about him all the time, tell you what he weighs every day. What we're doing, but happy to do that. And then once we get to that point, we can talk more if you need more information. I think for us, our ambassador names historically have had some sort of significant meaning. And so I think by supplying those updates and making sure you know his full backstory may help you, the winning bidder, know that as well. But if Dr. Patrick, Cara's significant other, is out there and he just wants to buy her the naming rights for Christmas, she's got a name in mind, and she's pretty devoted to this owl. So also a good option, Patrick.
Well,
Lots
good
of-
segue, Amanda. Speaking of Dr. Kara, one of the things that we need to keep in mind is why we are having this auction, and it is to support the work of the Wildlife Center, and an aspect of the work of the Wildlife Center that was recently done by our own Dr. Kara, our Director of Veterinary Services, is a paper that was presented to the Raptor Research Foundation, which is the world's leading research and academic study organization that is devoted to raptors. And it was, as far as I know, one of the very first papers written and presented on, well, it was a poster session actually on the lead poisoning of nocturnal raptors. A lot has been written about eagles with lead poisoning and loons and other types of swans and vultures and lots of other animals that scavenge or prey on other animals during the day. But there has been very, very, very little written and quite honestly, very little recognized that this environmental threat of lead poisoning, lead toxicity from hunting ammunition also affects nocturnal predators, our owls. And her poster was compelling, and we'll have it up on the Wildlife Center site in the near future, I'm sure. But your support of the naming rights of this bird ultimately helps owls, not just this bird.
And I will say, she, on her beautiful poster that she made for this presentation, she included the before and current of this owl. So this owl is literally the poster child for lead intoxication for nocturnal raptors. How perfect is that? Also, does anybody want to see what he's doing right now? I do.
Oh my Lord.
That's a live feed from my guest room.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Amanda?
It's usually, oh my gosh, also around this time every night he will talk to himself. One time he called in a wild owl from the neighborhood too. So I just listened to him doing his little descending whinny. It's adorable. I love him.
Okay, Amanda, you're going to have to save some of these stories for the winning bidder. Okay. So this is owl naming rights. This is item number 14 in your list. Okay. This is the opportunity to give a name to this education ambassador, again, with the caveats that Amanda has mentioned about if this bird graduates. But my expectation is that it will. And I certainly hope that it will.
He certainly looks good. And
pretty good.
The personality he shows and the perkiness, lest I use a human characteristic, is certainly an indication of his spirit. And the screech owls and kestrels, small diurnal and nocturnal raptors, seem to have more personality than anything else. And screech owls are just cool. I'm sorry to say. So.
Jennifer, we're going to go out of order here a little bit, out of the order that we had discussed, and let's go to item number 23, which is described in our auction catalog as the Ed Clark bee pen garden bench. We have talked a little bit tonight about the Great Rebuild, which is a process of restoring, of repairing many of our outdoor enclosures, including the bee pen. So let's have Ed talk about the history of the bee pen and the history of this bench.
Well, the history of the bee pen is probably a lot more noble than the history of this bench. But when the Wildlife Center was founded 39 years ago, and we're 2 weeks from our 39th anniversary, the Wildlife Center started in a barn. The original name of our organization was the Shenandoah Valley Wildlife Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, a name that lived in no one's memory. It was just too long. If you have to stop and take a breath when you say your name, it's too long. Well, we started on a farm where we were able to use part of a horse barn. Well, the farm was sold just a couple years after we got started, so we had to leave. We had to find someplace else, and the Ruritan Club in Wears Cave, Virginia said, hey, we've got some land, we'll let you use an acre. So we packed that acre full of enclosures, the first hospital for the Wildlife Center of Virginia, and indeed the first building in the United States built to be a hospital for native North American wildlife was a double wide trailer constructed for us on that site. And then we built a number of cages out back, a kind of a long complex with a center aisle and cages off each side. And this wood was in those original cages that were built in the mid to late 1980s. Well, the Wildlife Center eventually had to leave that site. Our lease ran out in the 90s, and we were told we had to clear the site. So we tore down every enclosure we had built, but the wood was still good. It's treated lumber. So we brought it to Waynesboro. And in 1995, with my trusty post hole digger and hammer, I rebuilt some of those cages. And then fortunately, we got a team of volunteers that came in and helped me rebuild the rest of them. This wood was originally used in our cages in Weir's Cave, Virginia, then used in our bee pens. Originally in Weir's Cave, then in Waynesboro, and has been there for 26 years in the new location. So when they tore down the old cages, let me just assure you that the wood was in pretty rough shape. So I asked the guys tearing it down to build the new cages if they could salvage a little bit of wood for me, and told them what I wanted to do, and they did. And the wood was, well, let's just say after 35 years of animals living in it and pooping on it and it being exposed to the elements, it was pretty rough. But surprisingly enough, little power washing, a little elbow grease, and a little imagination, we got enough. And I built this bench. This bench is not fancy. It is not fine furniture, but I promise you it will not collapse with you. And it is made from wood that quite literally gave life to thousands of birds of prey. And in Weir's Cave, the cages that we used were used for multiple species. So every cage had, in fact, our current cage design came from Weir's Cave. Our current raptor cages, the bottom of the cage is solid plywood up to 4 feet tall, and then it slats up from there. Well, the reason it was solid plywood is because we kept deer faunts in those cages and river otters in those cages and foxes and every other thing you can imagine. So this wood has the spirit of wildlife in it, I can assure you. And the fact that people have thus far been so enthusiastically, I'm going to make a bonus offer tonight.
Okay.
Now, my bonus offer tonight is that the winning bidder will get to choose whether I build a second or indeed a second, third piece or pieces of furniture. I will either build a small coffee table like table to go in front of this bench on which you can put your feet or your drinks or your whatever.
Okay.
Or I will build a small end table for each end of the bench from the remnants of the same lumber.
And you have enough lumber to do that, Mr. Clark?
I'm going to have to get the power washer back out, but I think I can squeeze it out.
Okay.
So you will get your choice in addition to this, I won't say lovely, but I will say sturdy garden bench. You'll either get a table the length of the bench that will be designed to sit in front of it, or end tables to go on each end.
And that is winner's choice in consultation with the artisan. That would be you.
That artisan is very generous. I appreciate that, but this bench is nailed, screwed, and glued together, so it is very sturdy, and so too will be the tables.
And I'm presuming, Mr. Clark, that you have signed or will sign or autograph or something this bench.
I will indeed place my moniker on this bench in an unobtrusive place, but one where it can be found.
Well, regardless of where your autograph goes, this is storied wood. This is wood that comes with a great history at the Wildlife Center of Virginia. So this is truly a one-of-a-kind piece of furniture, but also a one-of-a-kind experience.
Well,
Okay.
they talk about tree huggers. They say, don't knock tree huggers if you've never hugged a tree. You can hug this tree. It's been cut and planed and processed and used, but it's still a tree. And I assure you that the history and legacy of this bench is life-giving.
Okay, I have my eye on the clock here.
Yep.
And in my role as taskmaster and train master, some of the other items that we could be here all night, but bidding closes in 16 minutes. So we're not going to talk about it all night. We got the Bear Tower picnic. We got the opossum drawings. We have drawings of opossums and drawings by opossums. We have things that have been contributed by Wildlife Center staff. We have a painting by Lacey. We have honey from Amber's hives. We have cookies from Michael and from Connor that, Amanda has waxed poetic about how wonderful these cookies are. We have radiographs that Dr. Jen pulled together from some of our patients. There are so many great items. Time is running short. I want to take a few minutes, underline the word few, colleagues, to talk about item number 13, lucky item number 13, which is the Elvis lamp. And this is an item that may need a little explanation. So that's why I'd like to take just a couple minutes to talk about it. Ed, you can talk about it. Amanda, you have had the lamp, so please share your experiences briefly.
Well, I have had the lamp, let me just say, far too many times. The lamp came to us, 30 some years ago. And so the auction item is not to own the lamp, but to possess the lamp. The lamp has been in the offices of members of Congress, newspaper publishers. It has been in my office far too many times. It's been in Amanda's office, where I think it would look really great for the next year.
No.
And it really, and actually it works, and it's got a really tacky light shade that goes with it. But so you are getting possession, and we will shame whomever you designate to get it into actually displaying it. Former Congressman L.F. Payne had it in his office in Washington, D.C., and it became legend in the Capitol. But Elvis is a cultural icon, and this lamp is a Wildlife Center icon. Now, Amanda, talk about how much he inspired you.
Well,
Yes,
right
and
there.
we'll see.
I was pretty, sad about it, because our beloved volunteer moderator Congo Wings bid on this to put in my office. So I begrudgingly took him, and then decided to have fun. So we dressed him up for the different holidays, but then the pandemic hit, and he had to stay here alone. He wore a mask for part of the time. He was very cautious. It was good. But last year, thankfully, some wonderful wildlife supporters banded together and gifted this back to beloved moderator Congo Wing. So it's actually at her house now. I think where he probably wants to stay. He seems old and tired, and traveling is a lot. So he probably wants to stay there. I'm sure she's had fun, because I gave her like a basket of his, outfit costumes and stuff too. So that's my thought.
Yeah, well, he spent a couple of years at the Burketown Gentlemen's Club on the bar, which is a bourbon tasting club as well. So we know he likes bourbon. Maybe if you bid on the bourbon tasting, you can bring Elvis as your guest.
This item is unique in that you are not purchasing this item. You're basically purchasing the use of the Elvis lamp for a year. The other thing that I would encourage people to think about is the best way to guarantee that Elvis does not end up with you is to be the high bidder. Because if you're the high bidder, you get to determine where Elvis will live for the next year. So if you don't want it in your office, or you don't want it in your house, or you don't want it in your cabin, the best way to prevent that from happening is to be the high bidder. Okay. The auction closes in 12 minutes.
All right.
So I think it's time for us to stop talking and for people to go back to bidding and checking their bids and all of that. We're going to do the gala video again with sound. We have a couple of other videos that we're going to play just to kind of take us out. But this is the last chance for Amanda and Ed and Randy to express our thanks to everyone who makes possible the work of the Wildlife Center. And this event is one important part of that. Amanda, some closing remarks, please, some thoughts.
Just thank you all so much for joining us virtually. I know it's kind of been another weird year, but it's always so wonderful to at least see your names on the screen. And we always appreciate your support so much in helping us do what we do every single day.
Well, and I can only second that and just remind everybody that 2022, we will be celebrating our 40th anniversary of the Wildlife Center of Virginia. We've got a lot of big things to talk about next year. We'll be announcing a lot of exciting stuff, but we didn't get where we are alone. It was you, our friends, our supporters, our allies, our donors that made it all possible. We owe it to you, and we thank you so much for joining us this year. Take the last few minutes to check your bids, enjoy these videos. We hope now that we've got the sound problem fixed, and we'll look forward to seeing you at other online events in the near future. And certainly we hope we'll get to see you in person in the coming year. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much. Take care. Happy bidding.
Good night.
The Wildlife Center of Virginia mobilized to help some of the tiniest victims of Hurricane Bonnie, hundreds of baby squirrels.
Making the big step to the great outdoors can require a helping hand.
That's just what you need.
While our patients never say thank you, and for that matter, never pay their bill, this is a work that is more than satisfying. The staff of the Wildlife Center are on the job 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Since founded in 1982, the Wildlife Center of Virginia has treated more than 85,000 wild animals, representing more than 200 species of native birds, mammals, reptiles, and amphibians. In addition to the treatment we provide, the lessons learned from these cases are shared with some 1.5 million school children and adults across Virginia, with many attending virtually and physically from across the world.
We'd like to thank you all for banding together over Zoom with more than 2,500 participants in programs this year. The center has and will continue to make the safety and welfare of both participants and wildlife ambassadors our top priority. With online tours, critter cams, and meetings with the ambassadors, this past year has been a joy to work with the community in the best ways that we can.
careful because straight down it.
It's true.